to approve the minutes for the January 28th meeting.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great, second by Ms. Greenberg. So all in favor of approving the minutes? And those, there's a comment for those board members. If you could turn your cameras on. Thank you. Great. So, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, minutes approved. That we move to the chair report. I do not currently have a chair report at this time. There's no other business no new business had been brought forward. Of course, that's at the bottom, but nothing to report at this time as far as the committee. So with that, we'll go on to old business. We have the Ford Motor Company appeal and resolution. Do we have a status on that, Adrian?
Bob, I believe Bob may have more information. Are you able to share that, Bob?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, all the fire departments, with the exception of Fairdale, have settled with Ford. Talked with the Fairdale's chief the other day. They are still having some disagreement with the settlement, and they have not accepted it at this time. As soon as they accept it, we will get back with Ford's lawyer and ask him to withdraw the appeal.
Thank you. Let me, I'm going to try to adjust my audio again.
Okay. Is this any better? Can you all hear me? Colonel
Yes.
Atkinson? Great. Okay. My apologies. Let's see. So I've got the headset and the microphone should be on the same setting. Oh, technology is not always my friend. So, but we're good. So let's start us back over. So we did call to order the first meeting of the Hazardous Materials Overseers Board, January 26, 2023. The authority of the hazmat ordinance is under Chapter 95 of the Louisville Metro Code of Ordinances, and his purpose thereof to protect public health and safety in Louisville Metro through prevention and controls of hazardous material incidents and releases and timely reporting. So this board is here to hear any grievances or appeals related to the hazmat ordinance, and to ensure that that process is made available to anyone, those who feel they have been aggrieved by an enforcement action from the administrating agency of MSD under the hazmat ordinance or Louisville Metro Emergency Services. So my apologies that we did not get through the introduction earlier. So with that, so the Ford Motor Company appeals resolution will stay under old business until that is resolved. So hopefully by the next meeting, we'll wait on a report of that, and unless they want us to hold a special meeting, which though they can request before the next regularly scheduled meeting. So from that, we'll move on to a list of our current board members, which are the same as when we met in July.
Madam Chair, may I
Yes.
ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
On the resolution for the Ford Motor Company case, this is dragged out for quite some time. Do we expect that to be resolved before our mid-year meeting? Then that question, I guess, is for Bob.
Uh, The information I receive is information I get from Fairdale's chief, who is working with his board of trustees and their lawyer and Ford's lawyer. We really do not know when this will be resolved because the discussions between Fairdale's lawyer and Ford's lawyer that we're not privy to. I would think that it should be resolved within the next couple of months, but I can't make any promises.
Yeah. And I guess we serve at the determination of, or however it is they want to appeal. So I don't know that there's an expiration date listed since they've already begun this appeal process to the board. So hopefully they can find a way to work that out among themselves. But I guess this board stands ready to make a decision if needed. So with that, we'll go ahead and introduce the board members. So I am Connie Mendel, currently serving as chair of the board, representing the regulatory community. I serve as deputy director of Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness. And that I'll pass it on to Ms. Greenberg.
Hi, Corinne Greenberg from Comores in Rubbertown, representing the regulated facility.
Mr. Raymond.
I'm Peter Raymond, currently working for Metalco.
Thank you. Also representing the industrial and regulated industry. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Lynn.
It appears that his audio is still trying to connect.
Okay. Well, we'll move on forward to Ms. Carson, but we'll say that Mr. Lynn does represent the industrial community. And I don't think. Ms.
Hello.
Carson, hello, there you are.
Hi, Lori Carson, Xeon Chemicals, industrial regulated community representative.
Thank you. And Colonel Atkinson.
Yes, thank you. Rick Atkinson. I'm currently the Deputy Director of the Louisville Fire Department.
Wonderful. Thank you. Ms. Fisher.
Good afternoon. I'm Cheryl Fisher. I serve on this committee as a member of the general public, also representing my company, Accordiv.
Thank you. And also serving as our secretary. Thank you. And Ms. Greenberg, I'm not sure that serving as our vice chair. Thank you for your service. And then I have Colonel Driesbach, which I did not see him initially. Does not look like he has joined us as of yet today. So with Jeffersontown Fire and Rescue also serving as a member of the response community. And then we also have Mr. George Becker, who serves on the committee, but I also do not see him in today, but also a member of the general public with Louisville Metro. So from there, having our board members, we have I think a presentation from MSD of the 2022 Hazardous Material Annual Report. Everyone should have a copy of that report, should have received it before the meeting. Hopefully you've had time to review that.
I can very quickly go over that if that's what you would like now.
Sure, yes, please.
Okay, basically what we've done is we've just given some an overview of statistics that happened during the year. And what we have done is we've listed these, and we've also listed some of the enforcement actions that were done. So you can see those also. And I'll go over very quickly what happened. In 2022, MSD actually responds to emergency response incidents. We also respond to other types of incidents. I'm going to give you a number, but this will reflect all the incidents we responded to, which is 196. Out of these incidents, 71 incidents did not apply to the hazardous material ordinance, and so we basically removed those. But what MSD did respond to, we respond to 86 declared level 1 or greater hazmats. I believe in 2022, we did not have any greater hazmats declared. We responded to 39 requests from the fire departments for our response. And these included different items. Some of these were when the fire department was at the scene of a large fire, and they may have had issues with runoff water. We would respond and look at that and help them figure out the best things to do to eliminate problems with that. Some of these are actually hazardous material incidents that were not declared. If the fire department does not declare a level 1, it won't show up as one. So MSD does administer the plan. At this point, we have 500 exemptions. These are facilities that one would expect to have hazardous materials. And when we look at them, we found out that they did not. So we have at this point, we have 500 on record. Then we have facilities with HMPC plans. These are facilities that have over-reportable quantities of hazardous materials. And we have 998. We levied one fine this year. In this case, we also list fines that are levied by EMA. We did not levy any fines. EMA did not levy any fines. If you go to your list, you will see a list of all the notice of violations that we sent out. Pretty much all ours were for 95.06, which is failure to notify in a timely manner. So there are some other things that we can send out NOVs for, but these usually are the majority of what we send out. So that's just basically a real quick overview. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, this is Peter Raymond. I have a question. You indicated earlier that it's up to the fire department to determine if it's a level 1, and if they do not report it as a level 1. Is that an education or reporting issue, or how do we ensure that all of the appropriate incidents are reported?
On a hazardous material incident, the fire department is in charge of the scene. If they get on the scene and they feel like they have an incident that they have already effectively handled, and there is no need to declare it a level 1 hazmat, then they don't do that. But they are the people who have the authority to declare the hazmats, and they also have the decision to either declare or not declare. Doesn't mean that it hasn't been handled, doesn't mean that the situation hadn't been mitigated. It just means that they did not feel the need to declare it as a level 1 or greater hazmat. But if you will notice, all those are actually noted. That's why we note the two different things. The ones that were declared and other ones that weren't declared. So they're all tracked.
Okay, thank you.
As a follow-up to Peter's question, in the cases where a notice of violation was given, there's no fine. What is the action that MSD is taking to make sure that those who have been cited understand the requirements for timely notification in future events?
MSD addresses this issue with notices of violation. In some cases, we try to educate. In some cases, we'll require facilities to give training to their employees if it appears that this was strictly a training issue. We'll ask them, we will normally, at the scenes of the incidents, we will issue what's called a PRR, a preliminary response report, and we will obtain information as to what the incident was, why it happened, and what can be done to keep it from happening. So in many cases, the company on their own, when they talk about what can keep it from happening again, they will go ahead and advise that they are putting in a program of education to ensure that all their employees have the proper training to make sure that they know what has to be called in an emergency.
Thank you.
Bob, overall, and I guess I should have introduced Bob Buffini, MSD. Overall, and looking in 2022's the data and trends from that, could you say whether this was a typical year, fewer incidents, more?
Actually, if you take the totals, and I did some research, last year when I totaled up the number of hazmat, the declared hazmats, and the number of requests for response from the fire department, it totaled up to 100. When I did it this year, totaled up to 125, so made it easy for me. So it's a 25% increase over last year in the number of responses we did involving hazardous material or involving the need of the fire department's need to contact us.
Thank you. Any other trends that you identified from year to year that you'd like to share?
I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but what we're seeing, and I know you all are all aware of this, is the terrible Louisville drivers. We're seeing an increase in MVAs that we're being called out on. And basically I attribute it to the driving habits of the Louisville drivers.
Hey, Bob, it's Corinne. I have a question on these summary statistics. I don't know if you mentioned this in passing and I just missed it. So MSD levied one fine under the hazmat ordinance.
That is correct.
That in the table of notice delayed, or is that something else, or is that something you're not able to share with us?
I believe I honestly, I believe this is all public record. The only thing, the reason it's not listed at this point is this happened in the last month, and this notice has not gone out yet.
Understood.
We'll be glad to share that information. We don't normally give out any information while something's still going on. So because this hasn't gone out, it's actually being mailed out this week. So I'll be able to get you that information shortly.
Yeah, I mean, if it were me on the receiving end, I wouldn't want the board to know before I knew. So
yes, I don't think
I'm sure it's not me because we haven't had any incidents. But
right.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, this is Colonel Atkinson with Louisville Fire. If I may, I have a question circling back a little bit to the point that Mr. Raymond brought up. I too have a little bit of a concern or a question about the incidents that were not declared hazmats. So is it safe to say that the fire department did not declare a hazmat, but MSD determined they were hazmats? Is that what we're saying?
No, what MSD is saying that many of these responses include that the hazardous materials were involved.
Okay, well, I guess what I'm kind of asking is the involvement of hazardous materials may or may not result in a declaration by the fire department depending on the reportable quantity. Am I correct in that?
Well, if I might say that when we talk reportable quantities, there's a couple of things that are there. In the hazmat ordinance, the reportable quantities are used, and these are used when facilities, people have an accident with hazardous materials, and this quantity is used to to say you have the obligation per the ordinance to report this to 911 because it becomes a hazardous material incident at that point. The reportable quantity does not necessarily, as far as I can see in the ordinance, reflect upon the fire department's decision to call this a level 1, 2, or 3 hazmat. So the fire department does that based upon, in many cases, what was there, what resources were necessary to mitigate this, and things such as that. So in some cases, fire departments have chosen not to call it a level 1 hazmat. When they get there, it's pretty much been cleaned up, or they've got it cleaned up in no time. And it's not MSD's, we don't have the purview to declare the hazmat. That's something that the fire department has purview over.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I guess what I'm saying is it seemed as though you stated that the fire department didn't declare a hazmat on 39 incidents that were determined to be hazardous materials.
Apologize. Yes, I apologize if I gave that. These incidents were for many different things. Some were because, like I said, the fire department was on the scene. They wanted us there because of where the firefighting water was going. Some involved hazardous materials such as oil, gasoline at the scene of MVAs that the fire department chose not to declare. We still responded to them because the fire department called radio and asked them to ask us to respond.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
And I do want a point of clarification also, Bob. Any amount of material, any hazardous material that reaches the sewers, ditches, waterways is considered a reportable quantity, correct?
A reportable quantity. Now, this is a reportable quantity for the company that spilled it. And that means as that reportable quantity, they have the obligation to notify 911 immediately. And that immediately is defined by under EPA documents is within 15 minutes.
All right, great, good discussion. Any other questions or comments regarding the 2022 Hazardous Material Ordinance Annual Report?
So just for my clarification, are we saying that regardless of if the fire department declares it a level 1 or not, that we are capturing all of the hazardous material incidents that occurred last year and reporting those or documenting those so we can get a true number? Or is it based on if the fire department notifies us or not?
MSD records information on every incident we respond to. We note whether it was declared level hazmat or whether the fire department requested us there. If the fire department chooses to not request us there, then we won't know anything about this incident, and it won't be listed here. So as far as, is there a master list of every incident that has occurred? Probably not. Because we are only making this list, and we can tell you that if we respond, we're tracking it.
This is Colonel Atkinson again, and I would say in response to that as well, that it is not uncommon for the fire department to even declare a level 1 hazmat and follow that radio transmission up that we can handle with the companies on the scene. Meaning we do not need additional resources to deal with what is spilled or leaked or so that is a commonly occurring I guess result of an incident.
Yeah, that's correct, Colonel. What we do is we will respond, even if the fire department, just to let you know, even if the fire department says we're okay, we don't need anything else, because part of the ordinance is to ensure that there's proper reporting, we will go ahead and respond anyway, especially to cases such as ones at facilities, to make sure that the proper notification was done in a timely manner.
That's correct. My understanding of the declaration is it notifies all of the appropriate agencies, whether they're needed to respond or not.
Correct.
The agencies, that sets off I guess a trail of events that notifies all the agencies that are required to be notified in a hazmat declaration.
Yes, sir, that's correct. I mean, we're talking agencies outside. We're talking state fire marshal. And of course, you know all this, and a lot of other agencies, not even in Louisville.
I see Ms. Greenberg has her hand raised for a question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to piece all this together because at the outset, I thought I understood everything that we had summarized here, and now I'm starting to doubt myself. So when companies do self-report a hazmat incident, that goes into 911, 911 dispatches a fire company, and presumably, does 911 not also let the other agencies know, or are the other agencies waiting on the fire department to call them? That's my first question.
Colonel, do you want to address that?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't feel comfortable speaking on behalf of what happens with MetroSafe and the notification process in terms of other agencies outside of Louisville Fire until Louisville Fire were to arrive and declare the hazmat. At that point, I'm fairly confident to be able to say, yes, there are a series of notifications that are made at that point. Prior to the Louisville Fire Department or any fire department's declaration, I do not know who is notified. So, Bob, if you know that.
I don't know. It is my understanding that after the fire department is notified and they respond, and basically that's it at that point until the fire department gets there to assess the situation. And at that time, they look at the situation and they assess it and they say, okay, this is what we have. This is what we need. And they can, at that point, either declare a hazmat. They can just call radio and ask them to send health department or send MST or someone to the scene.
Or
And
they can declare it not a hazmat incident?
you don't declare it not a hazmat. You just don't declare a hazmat. Okay. And if they declare a hazmat, then exactly like the colonel said, there are numerous agencies that get notified and they have a list they go down. And every time they declare a hazmat, these agencies are notified.
But if they don't declare it, then it just sort of ends there?
If they feel like they have it under control and there's not much to it, and they don't declare it at that point, no one else is notified, and that information is documented in their run report.
Okay, so wouldn't 911 have some record of the number of calls that came in where the caller said we exceeded an RQ? Does that number not exist? Do we not get a database from 911, or are we going strictly off of how these are filed by the responding fire departments?
I'm not familiar enough with 911 to know whether they keep a list of all the calls for every incident. I would assume they do, but whether they're
But it
in a
doesn't sound
single
like you're
file.
getting your data off of that. You're not getting that data for your summary table. You're getting your summary data off of just what MSD responded to?
That is correct. Our summary data comes the ones MSD responded to, and then we put that information in our report, and then we take it off the report and put it in here.
Okay, and so MSD is either going to respond because 911 called you and said, hey, there's a hazmat incident, go respond, or B, the fire department is calling 911 saying send MSD, right?
911 is the the alarm office, they will not call MSD and ask us to respond. The fire department, when the engine responds or the truck responds, they will contact the radio room and they'll say they will ask for a response from MSD. Then the people in the radio room will contact MSD or will send out a page to MSD or the health department asking them to respond to the scene. 911 is where the
respond when the fire's captain or on-scene incident commander calls for you?
correct. That's when we respond.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, and then by the list of the next page where there were some companies that were fined for either delayed reporting or not reporting at all, if a company doesn't report at all, say an incident happens, it does involve hazmats, but they didn't report it, the fire company shows up anyhow because whatever, and then the fire department is going to escalate and say, hey, we need to make sure MSD is on the scene, and that's how those get logged.
In some cases, that's how they get called. In some cases,
Otherwise, it's a late notification, yeah.
it may still be late notification. We actually have cases where representatives at the company have called us saying, hey, we had an incident. And because of, whatever happened, no one called. And so we'll go out there and we'll respond to them and we'll give them paperwork to fill out. And if they didn't call the fire department, we don't have what we call a 911 in time, then obviously they can't, they're going to be a delayed notification or no notification.
Okay, thank you.
Good discussion. Anyone else have questions for Mr. Buffini or anyone else at MSD in regards to the annual report or emergency response trends?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm sorry.
No, please.
I'm just trying to make the correlation in my own mind between the hazardous materials notifications and first aids, near misses, recordables, fatalities, all that stuff. And even if the fire department determines on the scene that it's not a level 1, is there a way to have them do a follow-up incident of, this was a motor vehicle accident that released diesel or gasoline or motor oil. It didn't go into any ditches or vegetation. So we can track those incidents over time and see if we're getting better or worse or how it's trending.
I cannot speak for the fire department. You got to remember when the agencies respond, each one has individual responsibilities or duties. When the police respond, it's their obligation to ensure that it's safe out there. The fire department responds to look at the materials and to look at the hazardous materials and ensure that it's safe. In many cases, depending on what it is, when you deal with hazardous materials, everybody's heard the term from the cradle to the grave. In many times, what will happen is the fire department, if you have these spills that are rather large, the health department will be there and they will assign cleanup orders. Say it's a tractor trailer with 150, 200 gallons of diesel spilled. They will assign cleanup orders to that company, and they will then contact a remediation contractor to get this material. So I guess it's that everyone has different tasks that they do at the scene. I don't know if I'm answering it or not. And things can be different at any accident scene.
If I may,
Right, that's under, I'm sorry, Chief, Colonel, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll try to add a little bit more. So I can speak confidently on what the expectation is of the members of the Louisville Fire Department. can't speak quite as confidently about what the expectation is in the suburban fire departments. As it relates to, specifically you talked about motor oil and gasoline or fuel spills. The expectation that we have on the Louisville Fire Department is if it enters a waterway or a sewer line, or if it gets onto soil, or even something that's related to food, like if it's in a grocery store or something of that nature, the expectation that we have of our members is that at a minimum, you request MSD and or the health department to help determine what, number one, what cleanup measures are going to need to be required, but also, if it is a hazmat or not, a hazardous materials incident, like a level 1. So oftentimes those things occur in a roadway. And I think the difference for us between a waterway and in the soil is we can mitigate something that falls in the roadway with some absorbent. We can clean that up and dispose of it. If it happens in a waterway or on the soil, we're not equipped to handle that cleanup and mitigate it on the scene. And oftentimes in a vehicle accident, we're talking about, a couple of gallons or quarts versus the example that Bob was given about a commercial vehicle, carrying several hundred gallons of fuel. That's a completely different scenario in my mind. That certainly would be a hazardous material incident. So again, if it was something that, was kind of a smaller scale, oftentimes another thing that we have done is we would just request MSD or the health department to come to the scene, and we would have a discussion on the scene with those folks to help us determine, is this going to be a level 1 hazmat or is it not? So I don't know if that helps or hurts the question, but I just thought I would add that in.
Yeah, I guess my question though is, using your example, Colonel, of, there was a fender bender in a parking lot at the mall. An oil pan is broken loose and 4 quarts of oil are released into the parking lot. The tow truck comes, loads up the vehicle to haul it away, puts down some absorbent or cleanup material and remediates it on the site. Everything's been handled properly, everything's been handled appropriately. There's no long-term issue or incident. But is there a record of that as being a near miss hazardous material incident that we can document, or does that just go as a not reported incident that occurred someplace?
Well, you're using some terminology that formalizes, I guess, a near miss report. From my perspective, there is an incident report associated with that event. I do not believe that from the fire department's perspective, there is anything more than that in terms of documentation. Well, I will say this, unless we utilize some of our, so for instance, if we utilize some disposable type equipment to clean that up, we do bill for that. If it's at a fixed facility, we do not bill for it. If it is what you described as a fender bender in the parking lot, we do not bill individuals for using our equipment. We do, however, bill fixed facilities if we use, like a hazmat suit or some of that type of stuff. So
Right.
I can't speak on behalf of what MSD were. They probably wouldn't even have any idea that it occurred if it happened in the middle of the parking lot, because we would not have requested any other resources to the scene, agency-wise or otherwise.
Okay, so that would not be reflected in Bob's data.
That's correct. I would
Okay.
assume not.
Now, our data will only reflect incidents that MSD has responded to.
And the reason that I was differentiating between what the Louisville Fire Department does and what the suburban departments do is, number one, I'm not exactly for sure, but I have heard radio transmissions on MVAs, which is a motor vehicle accident, fender bender, that there have been hazmats declared on what we generally do not declare hazmats on, cleaning up motor oil and a couple of gallons of gasoline in the street. We do not declare hazmats on those, but it may be occurring in the suburban departments. But I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. It's one of the better discussions we've had in a while. It's good to clear these things up. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the 2022 Hazardous Material Ordinance Annual Report.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Greenberg. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Was that Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Yes, great, thank you. So I guess all those in favor of approving signify by saying yes or thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Great. Any opposed? Okay, so it's approved. Great, thank you. I think Mr. Feeney with MSD did go over, review some of the case and trends. Was there anything else that you want to share with us, Bob?
Excuse me, I was muted. Not at this time. I think we'll talk again when it comes to the little report that's going to be shown.
Right. We have a presentation.
Oh, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Is that, I think that's where we are. I guess, is that other business?
I believe so.
All right, well, I will stop sharing my screen.
Bob, do you want me to share mine or do you want to share
Yeah,
yours?
if you would do that, because I don't have that readily available at this time.
Okay, I can do it. Oh, look, I've got a ton of stuff open. Okay. Okay. All right, originally Mike was going to join us today and he prepared this. So Mike is not joining us today. So I'll let Bob, this is just kind of, we're going to talk about the HMO Appeals and Overseers Board. If you want to go ahead, Bob, give a background.
Adrian, I think you need to put it on your other screen.
Oh, goodness. Okay, give me just a second. Is it not?
I'm just seeing the presenters. Is that
Oh.
just me?
I had to allow Bob back in. Okay, let me.
Or if everyone else can see it, I'm fine.
Can you all see it or no?
I can see it.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Sorry, my bad.
sorry
Okay.
about that. I kind of knocked myself out, actually.
Sorry, I know.
Okay, this was something in a lot of questions you all brought up, which were great. I
Yeah.
answered this already, but this was something we wanted to just do a real quick thing on how it works. Okay, as we said before, the ordinance was written to help report and to help. Connie, you have that in front of you by any chance?
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about, the beginning of the ordinance there?
Yeah, I can read. I read a little bit of it earlier.
It's just that beginning.
Yeah. As far as the ordinance itself, the authority and purpose.
Yes.
So the authority of the Hazardous Material Ordinance, or HMO, is KRS 67C.15 or 1152, Chapter 95 of the Louisville Metro Code of Ordinances, currently Ordinance 121, Series 2007. So the purpose of the HMO is for the protection of public health and safety in Louisville Metro through prevention and control of hazardous material incidents and releases, and to require timely reporting of
Okay.
releases.
Thank you. So basically what she said, prevention, control, and timely reporting. That's what this is all about. This is a Louisville Metro ordinance. And this, because we keep getting people keep getting confused. They say, well, this is MSD's ordinance. Can I have the next one, Adrian, please?
Yes, you may. Yes.
Okay, this is not MSD's ordinance. Basically, what happened was this ordinance came about, if you all remember, back in 1985 in that area when we had a couple incidents occur when we blew up the sewers because there was hexane that was discharged into the sewers, and then an ignition caused the sewers to blow up. And then when we also had the illegal dumping, if you remember what they called hexa and oxa, which were chemicals, they were dumped in the sewers, caused people at MSD's treatment plant to get sick and caused us to dump solid waste into, or not solid waste, but untreated sewage waste into the river for a large period of time while we got the plant back in order. So MSD was designated as the administering agency. We administer the ordinance, which is why we're doing this information, giving you all the HMO report. Pretty much everything when it comes to enforcement, while there are some other things we can enforce, but pretty much it all is late reporting of an incident. Could you go ahead, Adrian?
Yes.
So there's a lot of people who get, they don't understand the immediate reference. I mean, immediate could be immediately within the next minute. What we do is we look at an EPA reference and it references 15 minutes, okay, after the discovery. And the reason we say discovery, because in many cases, especially at some of the large industrial plants, a leak can occur, and because of instruments, you can determine when that leak happened, but no one discovers it for some time. So the time that the spill starts and the discovery time can be two different times. That's why we say discovery, not the spill start time, because in many cases, you can't hold someone accountable for something they don't know about. So what it says is within 15 minutes of discovery, you have to notify 911. And what the ordinance actually says, the ordinance says if you have an incident, and then the way this ordinance reads, it says what determines an incident. And what determines an incident is a spill of over a reportable quantity, or a spill that can cause immediate danger to the people on the scene or downstream, and requires the assistance of an outside agency to help get this straightened out. And the reason we say things like that is we have a reportable quantity for gasoline of 56 gallons. Well, you all know if somebody's carrying a 10-gallon can of gasoline through the office and drops it, you don't have a reportable quantity, but you have a real problem and you have an incident. And you're going to be lucky if you don't blow the whole back end of your building off. So that's why we have different designations of what is an incident. The other thing we say is a reportable quantity is any amount that goes into a sewer or a stream or a ditch or anything such as that. And the reason we say that is we've already been through what happens when you spill things in the sewer. You blow up sewers and you blow up neighborhoods. Can I have the next one? So we do the annual report. The annual report will only include incidences related to the HMO. So what we're doing here, we're not putting in those other incidents we respond to, which might have been an improper discharge to the MS4 or something such as that. We're only putting the incidents in that involve level 1 hazmats or involve the fire department requesting us to the scene. And that's what we're doing. So we are going to start and we will be sending you this, giving you like a semi-annual report, which would just basically, we're going to give you, and we may even do this on a semi-annual, quarterly, or what, but it'll give you what incidents we responded to involving hazardous materials our fire department requested. And it'll just for your information, and it'll give you what it was when it happened. Just
Right.
that's pretty much what it will say. And that way, if you know, when you do come to these meetings, you have an idea of what's going on in the past 6 months or so.
Right. I was thinking we could do like a spreadsheet, like with the date that the incident occurred, the industry,
Right.
and material, the
Well,
quantity, and the
yeah.
enforcement action.
Actually, I'm working on one, and this is with some of the information that Wes has provided, and we'll get that to you all probably by the end of the month. And this will give you information on last year's incidents, and we'll do the whole year and send it to you. That's about it.
Yeah.
Questions, comments?
Thank you. I think this will be, and this is helpful. Thank you. And the forthcoming report with more information, I think, will also be very helpful. All right.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Actually, it's just a comment, really. I want to thank MSD staff for the report and also for making that change to provide the information in a more timely manner. That's appreciated.
Noted, and I agree wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, that takes us to our agenda. Anything else under other business? Okay, hearing none. I always have to tell myself to pause. No further business. The next order of business is the proposed next meeting date, which is July 27th, which again is a Thursday at 2 p.m. or 1400 hours is our typical meeting time. I know it's a little early in a lot of our calendars, but we will go ahead and hold that time and send out calendar invites moving forward. We don't have anything on the agenda that lists for discussion, but we're certainly open for discussions. If anyone else have any further comments or questions for our MSD team or the other board members. Okay, hearing none, I will, I guess, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Greenberg. Do we have a second? All right, everyone else signify by a yes or
Aye.
bye. A wave at the hand. Thank you all so much for serving on this board. And thank you to MSD.
Yes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right,
Take care.
all right,
Have a
meeting
good day.
adjourned.
Bye.